The first sign came from Kepler Station, orbiting the gas giant in the Tau Ceti system. The morning shift change happened as always, but when the night crew tried to contact the station 12 hours later, they found only silence. Admiral Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet received the report while reviewing trade documents in his flagship. His 4 eyes scanned the datapad with mild interest. Human stations went quiet sometimes. Technical problems or worker strikes. Nothing unusual. Send a repair ship, he told his aide. Humans and their fragile technology. But 3 days later, the repair ship arrived at Kepler Station to find something strange. The station was not broken. All systems worked perfectly. The lights were on. Air recycling systems hummed quietly. Even the coffee makers in the break rooms were still warm. The station was simply empty. Every human was gone. Personal belongings remained in neat piles by the airlocks. Family photos sat on desks. Half-eaten meals waited in the cafeteria. But not a single human remained anywhere on the massive station. Security cameras showed the last 48 hours in strange detail. Humans had calmly packed small bags. They hugged each other goodbye. Children carried stuffed animals. Adults gathered important papers and data drives. Then in groups of 20 or 30 they had walked to the shuttle bays and left. No panic, no rush. No emergency signals. Just quiet, orderly departure. The repair crew commander, a tall Zephyrian with blue-scaled skin, searched every room. He found something that made him pause. In the station commander's office, a note sat on the desk. Written in perfect galactic standard, it simply said, "Thank you for the opportunity to serve. Station systems are stable and will run automatically for 6 months." By the time this news reached the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, 17 more human installations had gone dark in the same way. Councillor Vexani of the Trade Federation laughed when she heard the reports. Her tentacles waved with amusement as she spoke to her fellow council members. "Humans and their drama," she said. "They want attention. Give them a few weeks, they will come crawling back when they get hungry." The other councillors agreed. Humans were useful workers, but they were emotional creatures. Sometimes they needed to throw tantrums like children. The galaxy would continue without them for a while. But the reports kept coming. New Terra colony. Empty. 3 million humans gone overnight. The planetary system still running perfectly. Automated messages played on all frequencies. Colony operations transferred to emergency protocols. All residents have relocated. Thank you for your understanding. Proxima mining station empty. The asteroid processing continued automatically, but every human worker had vanished. The Europa Science Labs. Empty. Decades of research left behind in perfect order, with detailed notes explaining how to continue each project. In the council chambers, the mood began to change. Councillor Thrick of the Crystalline Collective looked at the growing list of empty human settlements with concern. His crystal body reflected the lights of the chamber as he spoke. "This is not normal human behavior," he said. "Humans are tribal. They do not abandon their homes easily. Something else is happening." Admiral Zethkar still believed it was a political stunt. "Humans are trying to force our hand," he declared. "They want better working conditions or more representation in the council. We should not give in to their demands," but privately even he was beginning to worry. His military intelligence reports painted a strange picture. Human freighter ships had been moving constantly for the past month. Not commercial cargo routes, but personal vessels, small family ships, research vessels. Even old colony transports that had been in storage for decades, all heading toward the outer rim of known space. The strangest part was how coordinated it all seemed. Across hundreds of star systems, humans were leaving at almost the same time, but there had been no emergency broadcasts, no political announcements, no demands or ultimatums sent to the council, just silence. Director Caxel of Galactic Communications tried to contact human leadership on Earth. The response was always the same automated message. "We appreciate your inquiry. All human external affairs are currently under review. We will respond when appropriate." No human official would take a live call. No human diplomat appeared at council meetings. The human embassy on Nexus Prime had been empty for 2 weeks with a simple sign on the door, "Temporarily closed for administrative purposes." As more reports arrived, the scope of the exodus became clear. It was not just a few stations or colonies. It was happening everywhere humans had settled. mining operations on distant asteroids, research stations in empty star systems. Even the human quarter of the Great Trade Hub at Vega Station was slowly emptying out. The humans were not just leaving their jobs. They were leaving galactic civilization entirely. Dr. Eleonora, the Council's chief scientist, studied the pattern of departures. She was a methodical creature, with 6 arms that moved constantly as she worked through data. What she found made her nervous. The humans are not fleeing randomly, she reported to the Emergency Council session. They are following specific routes, moving toward regions of space we have never explored, and they are taking specific equipment with them. What kind of equipment? Asked Counselor Vexani. Advanced computers, quantum processors, dark matter sensors, gravitational field generators, all the technology we thought was beyond their understanding. Admiral Zethkar waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. Humans are scavengers. They take what they can carry. It means nothing, but Dr. Eleonora continued. There is something else. The humans have been purchasing massive quantities of exotic materials over the past year. Materials we use for our most advanced spacecraft. They paid in full, following all legal requirements. But the amounts... She paused. The amounts suggest construction projects far larger than any human colony we know about. The council chamber fell quiet. For the first time, some members began to wonder if they had misunderstood what was happening. Counselor Thrick asked the question that was forming in everyone's mind. Where are they going? Outside the council chambers across the galaxy, the exodus continued. Families gathered their most precious belongings. Scientists carefully packed decades of research. Engineers downloaded schematics and technical manuals. Children said goodbye to alien friends who had no idea why their human neighbors were leaving. On 1,000 worlds and 1,000 space stations, the same scene played out. Humans walking calmly to shuttle bays, carrying small bags in quiet dignity, leaving behind homes they had built and jobs they had performed faithfully for generations. No anger. No protests. No demands for change. Just the quiet determination of a species that had made a decision. As the last human transport ships disappeared into the darkness between stars, the galaxy they left behind continued its daily business. Alien species went to work, conducted trade, held meetings, and planned for the future. But something fundamental had changed. The humans were gone, and slowly, very slowly, the rest of the galaxy was beginning to understand that they had no idea what that really meant. In the empty human settlements, automatic systems continued to function. Lights turned on and off according to programmed schedules. Air recyclers hummed quietly. Computer systems maintained themselves with careful precision. And in the silence, a single truth was becoming clear. The humans had not just left their homes. They had left forever. 3 weeks after the first reports, the true scale of the human exodus became impossible to ignore. Every major human settlement in the galaxy stood empty, not abandoned in panic, but evacuated with the same careful precision that humans brought to everything they did. Director Caxel of Galactic Communications stood before the Emergency Council session with a data pad that contained numbers that should have been impossible. His tall, thin frame seemed to bend under the weight of what he was reporting. 437 human colonies, he said in his quiet voice. 1,612 space stations. 248 research facilities. All empty. The council chamber, usually filled with the constant chatter of dozens of alien species, had fallen completely silent. The human population of the galaxy, Caxel continued, appears to have decreased from approximately 8 billion to 0 in the span of 1 month. Counselor Vexani shifted uncomfortably in her liquid-filled tank. Her tentacles moved in nervous patterns as she processed the information. That is impossible. You cannot move 8 billion people without someone noticing. Apparently you can, said Dr. Eleonora from her position at the Science Council table. Because they did it. Admiral Zethkar had stopped calling it a political stunt 3 days ago. His military mind was trying to understand how such a massive operation could have been planned and executed without any intelligence service detecting it. He had been in charge of galactic security for 40 years. The idea that an entire species could simply vanish under his watch was personally insulting. There must be some explanation, he said. Species do not just disappear. Where are their ships? Where are their supplies? How did they coordinate across hundreds of star systems without us intercepting a single communication? The question hung in the air like a challenge, because the truth was that none of them knew. Dr. Elenara had been working day and night to understand the logistics of what had happened. She had always considered humans to be adequate engineers and decent organizers, but nothing special. Now she was discovering that she might have been very wrong. I have been analyzing the transportation patterns, she said, activating a holographic display above the council table. The humans used their own ships, but also purchased or leased approximately 12,000 additional vessels over the past 6 months. All legal transactions, all properly documented. The hologram showed shipping routes crisscrossing the galaxy like a vast spiderweb. Red lines indicated human transport movements. Blue lines showed normal galactic commerce. For the past month, the red lines had been moving steadily toward the outer rim of known space, while the blue lines carried on as normal. They were hiding in plain sight, Dr. Elenara continued, moving people and equipment using standard commercial routes. Nothing looked unusual because they followed all regulations and paid all fees. Counselor Thrick leaned forward, his crystal body reflecting the light from the hologram. But why? What could possibly motivate an entire species to abandon their homes? It was a question that had been troubling him for days. Humans were not a nomadic species. They formed attachments to places and people. They built communities that lasted for generations. The idea that they would all simultaneously decide to leave everything behind made no sense. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Zexra of the Agricultural Alliance, they found a better place to live. New worlds, better opportunities, but Dr. Elenara shook her head. I have analyzed all exploration data. There are no suitable worlds in the direction they traveled. The outer rim is mostly empty space, rogue planets, and dead star systems. As the days passed, the consequences of the human exodus began to affect daily life across the galaxy. At first, the changes were small. Shipping schedules running a few hours behind, communication delays between distant worlds, minor maintenance issues at space stations and planetary facilities. Then the problems got worse. The Tau Ceti trade route, which had been managed by human logistics coordinators for 30 years, fell apart completely. Alien captains, used to receiving detailed flight plans and cargo manifests, found themselves trying to navigate complex asteroid fields and space traffic patterns without human guidance. What had been a 12-hour journey now took 3 days. On Vega Station, the main hub for galactic commerce, systems that had run smoothly for decades began experiencing failures. The station's alien engineers discovered that humans had been quietly maintaining and upgrading thousands of small but critical systems. Without them, the massive structure was slowly breaking down. The director of Vega Station, a proud Zephyrian named Kethval, had always considered humans to be useful but unremarkable workers. They did their jobs adequately, followed orders, and caused few problems. Now he was discovering just how much work they had actually been doing. Every time we fix one system, 2 others break down, he reported to the council. The humans were apparently maintaining everything, not just their assigned duties, but everything. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Humans had not just filled assigned roles. They had quietly made themselves essential to the functioning of galactic civilization in ways that no one had noticed or appreciated. The communication networks were failing because humans had designed and maintained the relay systems that carried messages between star systems. The standardized computer interfaces that allowed different alien technologies to work together had been developed and constantly updated by human programmers. Even the translation software that allowed various species to communicate had been improved over decades by human linguists. Director, Caxel found himself working 18-hour days trying to keep the galactic communication grid functioning. He had always thought the humans who worked in his department were competent, but not exceptional. Now he was learning that they had been solving problems and preventing failures that he had never even known existed. Sir, his assistant reported during one of their emergency meetings, we have lost contact with the entire Centauri sector. The relay stations are functional, but the routing protocols are failing. Can we fix it? The human technicians wrote custom software for each relay. We have the programs, but we do not understand how they work. The documentation exists, but it assumes knowledge that apparently only the humans possessed. It was the same story everywhere. Humans had not just performed their jobs, they had quietly improved every system they touched. They had written software that other species could use but not understand. They had designed backup systems for backup systems. They had created redundancies that prevented failures no one else had even considered possible. And now they were gone. In the council chambers, the mood grew darker each day. Species that had barely noticed humans before were now demanding action. The smooth operation of galactic civilization, which everyone had taken for granted, was grinding to a halt. "We need to contact them," declared Senator Voron of the Mining Guild. "Whatever they want, we can negotiate. Better working conditions, more political representation, higher wages. Whatever it takes to bring them back." But every attempt to contact humanity failed. Earth's planetary communication array responded with the same automated message. "Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for the learning experience. We wish you well in your future endeavors." No human official would speak to council representatives. No human colony ship had left a forwarding address. No human organization had issued demands or ultimatums. It was as if humanity had simply decided that galactic civilization was not worth their time and had moved on to something better. The most disturbing part for the council members was the growing realization that they had never really known the humans at all. For over a century, humans had been present in every aspect of galactic society. They had been workers, scientists, engineers, traders, and colonists. But apparently they had also been planning something that no other species had suspected. "How long do you think they were preparing for this?" asked Counselor Thrick during one late-night emergency session. Dr. Elenara had been analyzing purchasing records and shipping manifests for weeks. The picture she was putting together suggested planning on a scale that impressed and frightened her. "Based on the material purchases and transportation logistics," she said, "I estimate they have been preparing for at least 50 years. Possibly longer, 50 years. While the council had been conducting business as usual, treating humans as reliable but unremarkable junior partners, humanity had been quietly preparing to leave them all behind. The question that no one wanted to ask, but everyone was thinking, was simple. Why? What had the council done or failed to do that convinced an entire species to abandon everything they had built in galactic civilization? And more importantly, what were the humans doing now out there in the darkness beyond known space? 2 months after the last human transport ship had disappeared into the void, galactic civilization was falling apart. What had started as minor inconveniences had grown into major crises. The carefully balanced systems that kept thousands of worlds connected and functioning were breaking down one by one. And with each failure, the alien species of the galaxy were beginning to understand just how much they had depended on humanity. Vega Station, once the proud center of galactic commerce, was dying slowly. Director Kethaval stood in the main control room, watching red warning lights flash across dozens of monitoring screens. Each light represented a system failure somewhere in the massive structure. Life support fluctuations in the residential quarters, cargo bay doors that no longer responded to commands, communication arrays that randomly lost signal. "Status report," he demanded from his engineering team. Chief Engineer Zorik, a 4-armed hegemony technician, looked up from his console with obvious frustration. "We have restored power to sections 12 through 15, but sections 23 through 30 are now experiencing total systems failure. The cascade effect is accelerating. What is causing it? We do not know, sir. The humans designed most of these systems. They left documentation, but it assumes knowledge we do not possess. Every time we fix one problem, our solution creates 3 new problems." Kethaval had spent the last month learning to hate the humans who had once worked under him. Not because they had done anything wrong, but because they had done everything too well. They had created systems so sophisticated and interconnected that no other species could maintain them. The irony was bitter. He had always thought of humans as adequate workers, competent enough but lacking the natural brilliance of Zephyrian engineering or the precision of crystalline technology. Now he was discovering that human adequacy had been keeping his station running for 30 years. Similar problems were occurring across the galaxy. The Proxima mining station had been forced to reduce operations by 60% because its automated systems kept malfunctioning. The asteroid processing equipment, designed and programmed by human engineers, required constant adjustment and maintenance that no other species understood how to provide. On New Centauri, The planetary weather control system had failed completely. The humans who had managed it for 40 years had left behind detailed manuals and computer programs, but the alien technicians could not make sense of the complex atmospheric calculations. Now violent storms raged across the planet's surface while 3 billion aliens huddled in emergency shelters. Dr. Eleonora had been appointed to head the Emergency Technical Committee, tasked with understanding and repairing the failing systems. She worked 18-hour days in her laboratory, surrounded by human-designed equipment that she was desperately trying to understand. The problem was not that human technology was too advanced. In many ways, it was actually simpler than what other species used. But it was different. Humans thought about problems in ways that other species did not. They created backup systems for backup systems. They planned for failures that no one else had even considered possible. "Look at this," she said to her research team, projecting a holographic diagram of a human-designed life support system. On the surface, it appears straightforward. Air recycling, water purification, waste management. But underneath, the diagram expanded to show layer after layer of interconnected subsystems, redundant pathways, automatic failure compensation, emergency protocols that activated other emergency protocols. What had seemed like a simple system was actually a maze of contingencies and safeguards. They did not just build life support systems, Dr. Eleonora continued. They built life support systems that could survive anything. Equipment failures, power losses, asteroid impacts, even deliberate sabotage. Every possible disaster has been anticipated and planned for. One of her assistants, a young crystalline researcher, raised a pointed question. If their systems are so robust, why are they failing now? Dr. Eleonora had been wondering the same thing. Human-designed systems had been running perfectly for decades. Why were they suddenly breaking down all at once? The answer, when she found it, was disturbing. "They are not breaking down," she announced to the emergency council session. "They are shutting down. According to predetermined schedules." The council chamber erupted in confused voices. Admiral Zethkar stood up, his 4 eyes focused intently on Dr. Eleonora. "Explain." "I have analyzed the failure patterns. The systems are not malfunctioning randomly. They are following shutdown protocols that were programmed into them years ago. The humans built termination dates into their own technology. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just planned their exodus. They had ensured that the systems they left behind would eventually stop working without human maintenance. Not immediately, which would have been obvious sabotage, but gradually over a period of months, which looked like natural deterioration. "How long?" asked Counselor Vexani. "Based on current failure rates, most human-designed systems will be completely non-functional within 6 months. 6 months. Without human technology and expertise, galactic civilization would be reduced to whatever each species could maintain with their own knowledge and resources. For some, that meant returning to pre-spaceflight technology levels. The economic implications were becoming clear as well. The galactic stock markets, such as they were, had crashed as soon as investors realized the scope of the crisis. Shipping companies that had depended on human-managed routes were going bankrupt. Mining operations were shutting down. Even the basic infrastructure that allowed different alien technologies to work together was failing. Counselor Thrick had spent weeks reviewing historical records, trying to understand how humanity had become so essential without anyone noticing. What he found challenged everything he thought he knew about the humans. "For the past century," he reported to the council, "we have treated humans as junior partners in galactic civilization. We gave them adequate representation, adequate resources, adequate respect. We thought this was generous considering their relatively recent entry into the galactic community." He paused, his crystal body reflecting the chamber lights as he accessed memory files. But the records show something different. In every major technological advancement of the past 50 years, humans were involved. The quantum communication networks that connect our worlds. The standardized computer interfaces that allow our different technologies to work together. The gravitational field generators that power our fastest ships. Even the translation protocols that allow us to communicate across species. "Humans contributed to these projects," said Admiral Zethkar. "But they were team efforts. Many species worked together." "Yes," Counselor Thrick agreed. "But in every case, the crucial breakthroughs came from human researchers. The insights that made the projects work. The solutions to problems that other species could not solve. The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. Humans had not been junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been the engineers keeping it running. While other species focused on politics, trade, and territory, humans had quietly made themselves indispensable to the technological foundation of everything, and now they were gone. The search for solutions grew increasingly desperate. Engineering teams from every major species worked around the clock to understand human technology. The best minds in the galaxy applied themselves to problems that human technicians had solved routinely. Progress was slow and frustrating. Systems that humans had maintained with simple software updates required weeks of work by alien experts. Equipment that had run perfectly for decades refused to function properly under alien management. The Crystalline Collective, proud of their logical precision, discovered that human inefficient redundancies were actually crucial safety features. The Zephyrian Empire, confident in their technological superiority, found that their obviously better designs failed catastrophically when applied to human-built infrastructure. Most frustrating of all was the growing realization that humans had been trying to teach other species these technologies for years. Research papers had been published. Technical conferences had been held. Training programs had been offered, but other species had not been interested. Human knowledge was considered adequate but unexceptional. Other species had their own technologies, their own methods, their own pride. Why learn from humans when their own approaches were clearly superior? Now, with human systems failing one by one and no humans available to fix them, that pride was becoming a luxury that galactic civilization could not afford. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations detected something strange. Gravitational anomalies in the outer rim regions where the human ships had disappeared. Energy signatures that did not match any known technology. Construction activity on a scale that suggested massive engineering projects. The humans were building something out there. Something big, but what? And why had they felt the need to leave everything behind to do it? As the failures continued to mount and galactic civilization crumbled around them, the council members were beginning to ask themselves a question that should have been obvious from the beginning. What if the humans had not been junior partners at all? What if they had been the senior partners and everyone else had simply failed to notice? Admiral Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, as it traveled toward the outer rim of known space. 3 months had passed since the human exodus began, and galactic civilization was collapsing faster than anyone had thought possible. The Council had authorized a massive search operation to find the humans and convince them to return. 12 of the most advanced ships in the galactic fleet accompanied the Dominator. Each vessel represented a different member species, carrying their best diplomats, scientists, and military officers. The mission was simple in concept but desperate in execution. Find humanity and bring them home before everything fell apart. Completely. Long-range sensors are detecting the gravitational anomalies, reported Commander Yexte from her station. Whatever the humans are building out here, it is massive. Zethkar studied the sensor readings with growing unease. The gravitational signatures suggested construction projects on a scale that defied imagination. Structures that could only be built using technology far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. How is this possible? He muttered. 3 months ago, humans were maintenance workers and cargo handlers. Now they are apparently building what megastructures in empty space? Dr. Elin Ara, who had joined the expedition as chief science officer, looked up from her analysis station. Her 6 arms moved constantly as she processed data from multiple sensors simultaneously. Admiral, I am detecting dark matter manipulation on a scale I have never seen before. The humans appear to be using exotic matter to create artificial gravity wells. This technology is decades ahead of anything in our databases. The other ships in the fleet were reporting similar findings. Energy signatures that suggested fusion reactors the size of small moons. Manufacturing facilities that appeared to be constructing something using principles of physics that galactic science barely understood. Captain Korthvel of the Crystalline Exploration Vessel transmitted his analysis to the flagship. Admiral, we are detecting quantum field distortions consistent with dimensional engineering. The humans may be manipulating space-time itself. Dimensional engineering. Zethkar had heard theoretical discussions about such technology at science conferences. Alien researchers had published papers suggesting it might be possible to create pocket dimensions or bend space to allow faster-than-light travel without traditional warp drives. But those had been theoretical discussions, academic exercises. Apparently, humans had turned theory into reality. The search fleet continued deeper into unexplored space, following the gravitational anomalies and energy signatures. What they found challenged everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. Entire asteroid fields had been converted into massive construction yards. Robotic mining operations stripped raw materials from dead planets on a scale that suggested industrial capacity beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever achieved. And everywhere the signs pointed to technology that was not just advanced, but revolutionary. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we are receiving an automated transmission." "From the humans?" "Yes, sir, but it appears to be a warning beacon." Zethkar authorized the message to be played throughout the bridge. A calm human voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. "Attention, you are approaching restricted construction zones. For your safety, please maintain a minimum distance of 1 light-year from all gravitational anomalies. This area contains experimental technology that may be hazardous to conventional spacecraft. We appreciate your understanding." 1 light-year. The humans were claiming sovereignty over regions of space larger than most star systems, and they were calling their technology experimental, which suggested they were still developing capabilities even more advanced than what the sensors were already detecting. The expedition continued its search, but carefully maintained the requested distance from the major construction sites. What they could observe from long range was disturbing enough. Dr. Elin Ara compiled her findings into a report that she transmitted to the Council while the search continued. Her conclusions were stark. The humans have not simply left galactic civilization, they have transcended it. The technology they are deploying exceeds our capabilities by what appears to be centuries of development. They are not refugees seeking a new home. They are architects building something we cannot even comprehend. The search fleet split up to cover more territory, each ship investigating different regions where human activity had been detected. What they found was consistent across hundreds of star systems. Evidence of massive construction projects, advanced technology, and industrial capacity that dwarfed anything in known space, but they found no humans. Commander Sil'ara of the Hegemony Heavy Cruiser transmitted her findings to the flagship after 3 weeks of searching. "Admiral, we have located 17 major construction sites, 43 mining operations, and what appears to be a shipyard facility the size of a small moon. All are fully automated. We have detected no biological life signs anywhere. It was the same story from every search team. Human technology was everywhere, but humans themselves remained invisible. Either they were using concealment technology beyond galactic understanding, or they were operating their vast construction projects from locations the search fleet could not detect." The most disturbing discovery came from the exploration ship Nova's Edge, commanded by Captain Thexel of the Trade Federation. She had been investigating a region where sensors detected massive energy output, but no visible structures. "Admiral," she transmitted with obvious confusion in her voice, "we have found something impossible. Our sensors detect a construction project with energy output equivalent to a small star, but visual observation shows only empty space." "Equipment malfunction," suggested Zethkar. "Negative, sir. All systems are functioning normally. The energy is real. The gravitational effects are real. But whatever is generating them exists in dimensions we cannot observe. Dimensional technology. The humans were not just building in normal space. They were creating structures that existed partially outside conventional reality." As the search continued, the expedition received increasingly desperate messages from the Council. Galactic civilization was collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. Critical infrastructure was failing on dozens of worlds. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were shutting down permanently. Some species were beginning to experience significant population displacement as their technology-dependent societies broke down. The Tau Ceti colony, which had hosted 3 billion aliens across 17 different species, was being evacuated because life support systems could no longer maintain atmospheric balance. The great libraries of the Crystalline Collective were going dark as human-designed computer networks failed. Even basic interstellar communication was becoming unreliable as relay stations shut down one by one. But the humans remained silent and invisible. After 2 months of searching, Admiral Zethkar was forced to admit that the mission was failing. They had found evidence of human activity across vast regions of space, but they had not found any humans willing to communicate. Every attempt to establish contact resulted in the same automated responses, polite but firm warnings to maintain safe distances from construction zones. The technology gap had become impossible to ignore. Whatever the humans were building, it was beyond the understanding of galactic science. They were not hiding from the search fleet so much as operating on a level that made conventional search methods irrelevant. Dr. Elenara delivered her final analysis during the fleet's return journey to known space. "We are not dealing with refugees or colonists," she reported. "We are dealing with a species that has achieved a level of technological development that places them beyond our ability to track, contact, or understand. They have not left galactic civilization because they were unhappy with it. They have left because they no longer need it." The implications were staggering. For over a century, the Galactic Council had treated humans as useful but unremarkable junior partners. But apparently, humans had been using that time to develop technologies that made them effectively post-galactic. While other species had focused on politics, trade, and territorial expansion, humans had been quietly researching dimensional physics, exotic matter manipulation, and construction techniques that allowed them to build in multiple dimensions simultaneously. As the search fleet returned to Council space, they carried with them the disturbing realization that humanity had not been driven away by poor treatment or lack of opportunity. They had simply outgrown the need for galactic civilization entirely. The question that haunted every member of the expedition was simple. If humans had possessed such advanced capabilities all along, why had they stayed as long as they did? And the answer, which none of them wanted to admit, was becoming increasingly obvious. They had stayed because they had been trying to help. They had remained part of galactic civilization not because they needed it, but because they had hoped to lift it to their level. The Galactic Council had not lost useful workers. They had driven away teachers who had been trying to show them a better way. And now, as their civilization crumbled around them, those teachers were gone forever. 6 months after the search fleet returned with news of humanity's incomprehensible technological advancement, the Galactic Council gathered for what many suspected would be their final session. The Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, once filled with the confident voices of dozens of species managing a thriving interstellar civilization, now echoed with desperation and recrimination. More than half the member worlds were experiencing critical infrastructure failures. Entire star systems had been forced to revert to pre-spaceflight technology as human-designed systems failed beyond repair. The Crystalline Collective had lost contact with 60% of their colonies. The Zephyrian Empire was dealing with massive population displacement as their technology-dependent cities became uninhabitable. Admiral Zethkar, his 4 eyes dulled with exhaustion and defeat, delivered the security report that everyone already knew would be devastating. Galactic communication networks are operating at 12% capacity. Trade routes have been reduced to local system traffic only. 17 member species have declared states of emergency. The infrastructure that supported our civilization for over 2 centuries is gone. Dr. Elenara had spent months trying to reverse engineer human technology from the documentation they had left behind. Her report was equally grim. "We have made minimal progress in understanding human systems. Their technology is not just more advanced than ours. It operates on principles we are only beginning to comprehend. Without humans to maintain and operate these systems, they will continue to fail until none remain functional." The silence that followed was broken by Counselor Vexani, her tentacles writhing with frustrated anger. How did we not know? How did an entire species develop such advanced capabilities without any of our intelligence services detecting it? The question had been tormenting council members for months. Every intelligence agency in the galaxy had been tasked with monitoring human activities. But apparently they had been watching humans perform maintenance work and administrative duties while completely missing the fact that humanity possessed technology that made them effectively post-galactic. Counselor Thrick provided the answer that no one wanted to hear. "We did not see it because we did not want to see it. For over a century, humans attempted to share their knowledge with us. They published research papers that we dismissed as irrelevant. They proposed technological improvements that we ignored as unnecessary. They offered to teach us principles of engineering and science that we considered beneath our attention. He activated a holographic display that showed decades of human research proposals, all marked as denied or low priority by various council committees. Dimensional engineering research, exotic matter manipulation studies, quantum consciousness transfer protocols, artificial gravity generation techniques. Every major breakthrough they have demonstrated in the past 6 months was proposed to this council years ago. The list continued for several minutes. Hundreds of research proposals, thousands of technical improvement suggestions, countless offers to share knowledge and collaborate on advanced projects, all rejected by a council that had considered human knowledge to be adequate but unexceptional. We treated them like talented children. Councillor Thrick continued, useful for simple tasks but not worthy of serious consideration when discussing the future of galactic civilization. As the council members absorbed the magnitude of their collective blindness, a new transmission appeared on the main communication screen. For the first time in 6 months, it was not an automated message. A human appeared on the screen, middle-aged, with graying hair and calm eyes that seemed to look directly at each council member. He wore simple clothing and stood in what appeared to be a laboratory or research facility. Behind him, barely visible, were glimpses of technology that defied description. Members of the Galactic Council, he said in perfect galactic standard, I am Dr. Sarah Chen speaking on behalf of humanity. The chamber fell completely silent. After months of searching and desperate attempts to make contact, a human was finally willing to speak to them. We are aware of the difficulties you are experiencing, Dr. Chen continued. We regret that our departure has caused hardship for your civilizations. That was not our intention. Admiral Zethkar leaned forward. Dr. Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally request that humanity return to help restore the systems that are failing. We are prepared to offer any terms you consider reasonable. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but you misunderstand our situation. We have not left because we were dissatisfied with our treatment, though there were certainly frustrations. We have left because we have found something better. She gestured to the space behind her, and the camera angle widened to show glimpses of a vast research facility. Alien council members could see humans working alongside technologies that appeared to manipulate reality itself. For the past century, humanity has been researching what we call dimensional transcendence, the ability to exist across multiple layers of reality simultaneously, to build and live in spaces that are not constrained by conventional physics. Dr. Chen paused, allowing the implications to settle. 3 years ago, we achieved a breakthrough that allowed us to begin construction of our new home, not a planet or a space station, but a dimensional construct that exists partially outside normal space-time. A place where we can explore possibilities that are simply not available within the constraints of conventional reality. The holographic display activated, showing images that the alien minds could barely process, structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, cities that floated in space without visible support, gardens where the laws of physics appeared to operate according to different principles. This is where humanity lives now, Dr. Chen explained. We have not abandoned the galaxy out of anger or disappointment. We have simply graduated to a level of existence that conventional space cannot contain. Councillor Vexani's tentacles moved frantically as she processed the information. But why leave so suddenly? Why not share this technology with the rest of the galaxy? Dr. Chen's expression grew more serious. We tried. For 50 years, we attempted to introduce the basic principles of dimensional engineering to the galactic scientific community. Our research papers were dismissed as theoretical nonsense. Our offers to collaborate were rejected as unnecessary. When we proposed joint research projects, we were told that existing technology was adequate for galactic needs. She activated another display, showing the same research proposals that Councillor Thrick had presented earlier. We realized that the galactic community was not ready for transcendence technology. More importantly, we realized that attempting to force such advancement could be dangerous. Dimensional engineering requires a level of cooperation and shared purpose that was simply not present in galactic civilization. Admiral Zethkar stood up, his military bearing evident even in desperation. Dr. Chen, I take full responsibility for the Council's failures. But our civilizations are collapsing. Billions of beings are suffering as critical systems fail. Surely humanity's compassion would not allow such suffering to continue. Dr. Chen nodded sadly. We are not without compassion, Admiral. Which is why I am speaking to you now. Against the advice of many of my colleagues. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a weight of finality that chilled every council member. Humanity will provide emergency aid to prevent loss of life. We will share enough basic technology to allow your civilizations to maintain essential functions, but we will not return to serve as the maintenance staff for a galactic community that never valued our contributions as anything more than useful labor. The screen displayed a list of technical specifications and emergency protocols, advanced but comprehensible technology that could keep critical systems functioning, life support maintenance procedures, basic communication network repairs, enough knowledge to prevent humanitarian disasters, but not enough to restore galactic civilization to its former glory. This information represents several centuries of technological advancement over your current capabilities, Dr. Chen explained. It should be sufficient to maintain your essential systems for as long as you choose to use them. She looked directly into the camera, and her final words carried the weight of absolute finality. The age of galactic civilization as you have known it is over. Not because humanity destroyed it, but because humanity was the only thing holding it together. We were your engineers, your problem solvers, your maintenance staff, and your teachers, and you never realized it. The transmission paused for a moment, and Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. We wish you well in whatever comes next. But humanity's future lies beyond the boundaries of conventional space and time. We have found something better than galactic civilization. We have found transcendence. The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, the council members sat with the devastating realization of what they had lost. Not workers or junior partners, but teachers and guides who had been trying to lift them to something greater. And in their blindness and pride, they had driven away the only species capable of showing them the path to transcendence. Galactic civilization would survive, after a fashion,